Hello, hello, hello. My name is Robert. I am the recovery guy, and you have entered into The Fix. Good evening and good morning, not necessarily in that order. My name is Robert. I am the recovery guy, and it is so good to be with you. I apologize. I've been a little lazy, been involved in some exciting activities, though, but I've been lazy at the microphone, so I thought I would take a few minutes and share some thoughts with you. If you know me well enough, there is never a thought I did not like to share. I don't always share those thoughts, but there's never a thought that I did not like or be tempted to share. Hey, today is a great day. I don't know when you're going to listen to this, but today is day 14,001. On Thursday, I had 13,999, which made 14,000 consecutive days of sobriety very enjoyable. And today I woke up, which not everybody got to, and I had 14,001 day. That is exciting. That's actually even more exciting than 14,000 days. 14,001 day. My sobriety date is April 25th, 1986, and I love being old, and I love, I don't know how much I love being old, but I enjoy being old as a treated alcoholic. I am a chronic alcoholic, and the only thing that saved me were the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and the people like Buddy and Eddie and Will and Jack and Texas Mike and Russian Ted and Pete the Greek and Doc Irv and Abe the Skid Row Wino and Tom Bennett and Steve M. and you name it. The list goes on and on and on. And I'm so grateful to be here today. I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous as a last result. I was a good guy because I wasn't a good guy. I was suffering from a seemingly and hopeless state of mind and body. And I was as uncomfortable with me as other people were. The difference between them and me was they could ask me to leave their life. I could not leave my life. Suicide and alcoholism, they go hand in hand. However, I didn't want to die, as it's so aptly said so often. I just didn't know how to live. In Japan, one of the things that Father Martin, and if you've never listened to Chalk Talk, I invite you to do so. One of the things that Father Martin said, that Japan, they have a phrase, first a man takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes the man. And I was probably 25, 26 years old when the drink took me, when I no longer had the ability to choose not even how much I drank when I started drinking, but whether or not I was going to drink. And by the way, I'm a recovered alcoholic. That is what we recover from. We recover from the insanity of taking that first drink. Once I take that first drink, then Katie barred the door. There's a whole nother dynamic, which is a physiological approach that I have to alcohol, and that is enough is never enough. There is no such thing. So my recovery is founded in the sanity of not returning to that first drink, because once that first drink becomes a part of me, then I stop being a part of everything else around me. Bill Wilson, who is the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, along with Dr. Bob, wrote something in As Bill Sees It, and it's from page 4. And if you have the Bill Sees It, refer to it at another time. But it's about that. First a man takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes the man. Like many of you, we lost the ability to control our drinking. It says over any considerable period, things get worse, never better. So we lose the ability to control our drinking once we drink. We gain, because it says in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, for by this time sanity will have returned. If I'm tempted, I recoil as if from a hot flame. It says that this didn't happen. This happened automatically. I didn't do anything for it. I've reached a position of neutrality. I don't care. Alcohol is not the problem. Alcoholism, that's the problem. And that's why I need all 12 steps of recovery. Step 1 may be for the acute alcoholic. I'm a chronic alcoholic. I can never safely, and I make no apologies, nor do I feel badly about it. I love my life alcohol-free, but I can never safely go back to alcohol in any form, in any amount, for any reason, at any time, because at that case, as I often say, is when I start drinking, all bets are off. My entire life will change. It may not change right away, but it's going to change, because there's a craving that gets set up in me, and there's a scientific valuation to that, which is better for another podcast, or certainly tackled by other men and women much smarter than me and who can articulate and explain it. But let me talk about choice. Let me talk about where I'm at today, where I was at when I first got in the rooms. When I first got in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous back in 1986, my first go-round, and I was sober for 71 days, was February 9th of 1986. I was at my end. I was at that jumping off place. I couldn't live with alcohol, and I couldn't live without it. And I knew I had lost the ability to control my drinking, and I was 32 years old, and I was addicted to crack. I was addicted to alcohol. All the things that we say we never would do, I did along the way, from pornography, from adultery, to alcoholism, to drug addiction, compulsive overeating. My first 12-step meeting, as many of you know, was Gamblers Anonymous. And so I was as sick as they come. But my core, my foundation, alcohol set it all off. If I gambled, I drank. If I drank, I didn't necessarily gamble. That would come along the way. But drinking was everything to me. And I love what Bob D says. He didn't drink excessively and destructively, therefore he was an alcoholic. He was an alcoholic, therefore he drank obsessively and destructively. And it's a subtle difference, but it is a difference. I drank because I was this. I wasn't this and then became it. I'm not sure if that makes sense to you, but you know what? Hopefully you know what I'm saying. So on page 4, that's Bill Season, which is a fantastic book. If you don't have it, make it part of your library. He wrote this article called "Can We Choose?" from page 4, and I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm just going to talk about it for a few moments. It says on page 4, "Can we choose? We must never be blinded by the futile philosophy that we are just the hapless victims of our inheritance, of our experience and our surroundings." Let me stop there. Zig Ziglar said, and I love it in his goal session, and if you've never heard of Zig, look him up. He's phenomenal in goal setting and see you at the top, view from the top, great instructional sales and motivational positive mental attitude, PMA stuff. Zig Ziglar said, If you were born poor, it wasn't your fault. If you die poor, it is your fault. So at some point, I had to take responsibility. I wasn't the hapless victim of my inheritance, because I have brothers and sisters who could drink or not drink, and it doesn't make any difference to them. I, on the other hand, so it would be easy for me to blame my dad or my grandfather or someone along in my DNA lineage and say, oh, it was their fault. You know, shut up. I mean, it wasn't their fault. It was my fault. At some point, I had to take responsibility. I remember one time I was driving my mom, and I was telling her I was about 9 months sober, and telling her about my addiction and my alcoholism and all the things that I was doing and going through. And she said, Bobby, your dad and I are so sorry that we made you this way. And I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, I don't ever remember you and Dad holding me down, making me drink. And she was astonished. She said, oh, we would never do that. And I said, Mom, then it's probably not your fault, is it? So I'm not the victim of an inheritance, of even my life experience. I know other people who were born in alcoholic and codependent households, the middle of 7 children, didn't have much money. I know people like that, and they were perfectly fine. They went through life. They got their degree when they were supposed to. They showed up when they were supposed to. They stayed in one marriage. They never ran out on their kids. They never did all the things that I did, yet the dynamics of our upbringing and our surroundings were identical, if not certainly similar. So it says here, it's not our experience and our surroundings, that these are the sole forces that make our decisions for us. This is not the road to freedom. We have to believe that we can really choose. Gosh, I love that so much, that we can really choose. I had lost the ability, I had lost the notion. I thought alcohol and drugs was going to make every decision for me. Then Bill goes on to say, as active alcoholics, we lost our ability to choose whether we would drink. We were the victims of a compulsion which seemed to decree that we must go on with our own destruction. Then he goes on to say, yet we finally did make the choices that brought us above our recovery. We came to believe that alone we were powerless over alcohol. This was surely a choice, and a difficult one. We came to believe that a higher power could restore us to sanity when we became willing to practice AA's 12 steps. In short, we chose to become willing, and no better choice did we ever make. I'm like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. I get to the end of the movie, and I realize that if I want any happiness, any semblance of joy or peace or finality or comfort in my life, I never have to look any further in my own backyard. And I was always looking to other places, other things, other people to make an internal choice for me externally. I was looking for them to make a difference. I was looking for them to choose for me, to make me better, to make me happy, to make me satisfied. Get the word me in there? It was only until I came to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in 1986 that I listened to you. And I found out that when I added me to you, it became we. And that was the beginning of my transformation, where we realized that I could do this. That I went to the rooms and I realized that there was no difference between you and me. If there was a difference, you were taking advantage of choosing for yourself, where from internal standpoint, where I was still allowing alcohol to make choices for me, or crack, or gambling, or whatever that addiction was that got me to that low point in my life, that bottom, where I decided that I had to go up because going down was too scary for me. And that word choose is an interesting word. Choice, I love this. Choice is an act of choosing. So we'll go back to that word, to choose. Choosing is the action, is what we do when we choose. It's a verb and it's a noun. We choose. And I love the definition. My best friend, one of my great friends, is dictionary.com. And here's what it says about choose. To select from a number of possibilities, pick by preference. Wow. A number of possibilities. Well, I didn't have a possibility regarding alcohol that didn't include dying from alcoholism. And it might have been direct dying. Alcohol might have killed me. I might have spent the rest of my life in prison for killing what I call the Jones family of 5. There was a number of ways I could have been shot and killed in a drug deal gone bad, because that's where I went to. I could have been killed in an intersection. There was a number of ways that I could have died, and that was a possibility. And as long as I allowed alcohol to make choices for me, I had no say-so in my preference. Obviously, my preference was not to be married twice. I had a preference for not walking out on my children. I had a preference for not being kicked out from my mom and dad, or not wanting me around. I had a preference for not being fired from every job I ever had up until the point I got sober back in 86. I went to work, and gosh, I don't think I was ever fired. Well, I got fired back from Discover Bank a while ago, but I wanted to leave there anyway, so I sabotaged that whole opportunity. But I never got fired in my, and essentially 38 years of sobriety, but 37 years along the way. I got terminated from one job, and I was happy to be terminated from there. So that actually was my preference. But I became a good employee. I've been married over 35 years now. I have 10 grandchildren. My daughters speak to me. I'm speaking in California next week, August 30th, at the Triangle Club. That's a shameless plug in Pomona, California. So if you're out there, check it out. I'll be speaking at 7:30. But the next day, I'm driving back to Vegas, and I'm going to have lunch with my daughter Kathleen and my daughter Carol and my grandsons. These are girls that I walked out on. This is my preference today. I'm making better choices. I'm choosing better. I'm going by my preference from the inside out rather than the outside in. It said to make a choice or select from 2 or more possibilities. Well, those possibilities are pretty simple. I can live or I could die. I could be happy, joyous, and free, or I can be stupid, boring, and glum. I choose, or I can be treated or untreated. Those are my possibilities because I have a disease that demands treatment. And if you're alcoholic like I'm alcoholic, and you probably are if you're listening to the podcast, then that's our only choice. We can be treated or untreated. We have a disease that demands treatment, right? Otherwise, we're in a state of denial. If you don't think so, I was talking to Laura early this morning, and alcoholism is one of the only diseases known to man that will tell you don't have it. That's how steep our denial gets. We have a disease that will tell us, oh, no, you don't have this. You don't have that. There's nothing wrong with you here. There's nothing wrong with you there. That's why we have a 10-step. We continue to take a personal inventory. And when we're wrong, not if, but when we're wrong, we promptly admit it. We go fix it. We go make it right. We go to God. We say, do for me what I can't do for myself. Then what do we get to do? We get to go work with another alcoholic and practice the principles in all our affairs. Those are my possibilities. I have to be inclined. I have to lead myself toward that. Because my ego will say, there's an easier, softer way. You don't have to listen to those guys. You don't have to surrender. You don't have to be a nice guy. They were sucky to you anyway, so you have every reason to be a butthole to them, right? That's what my ego tells me. And it's really funny. Bob D, once again, says that the ego's number one responsibility, the number one job of the ego is to convince me it does not exist. Isn't that funny? And that's what your ego does too. It tells me, you know what? Don't listen to them. Listen to me. I think you're right. I think you're wonderful. I think you're all these things that you want to be when you're not taking responsibility for who you are once you've done. So we have been given to choice. It says to prefer or decide. Prefer or decide. I prefer to be happy, joyous, and free. I prefer to be sober. So I make a decision, right? If you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps, right? That's what it says in the big book. And I love that book because what a great instruction for living. What a great opportunity. But let's go back to what Bill said. We must never be blinded by the futile means it doesn't any good. It's futile. It doesn't lead to anything but death. It's a dead end. It's a road to nowhere. The futile philosophy that we are just the hapless victims of our inheritance. I love the foreword to the first edition because it says, we have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. So just because my temperament, my anxiety, my defeatism will lead me to believe that I'm a hapless victim, I'm not. It says we recovered from that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. It goes on to say that we hope this book is so convincing, need to be convinced. We are so convinced that no further authentication will be necessary. Isn't that wonderful? No further authentication. So I don't need to go anywhere else. I can just look in the first 164 pages and decide what I want to be. What is my preference? Where do I want to end up? What do I want to do? It says down on the bottom, yet we finally did make choices that brought us about our recovery. That's what I want to do. I want to recover. That's why I'm a recovered alcoholic. It doesn't mean, don't get it twisted, I didn't say I was cured. For we're not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. That's why I do, as Joe and Charlie say, growth steps every single day. 10, 11, and 12. If you understand the steps and the philosophy of the steps, and they're brilliantly written, steps 1, 2, and 3 are surrender steps. I come to a position where I can't do it. I must be willing to reinvent myself. I must clear away the wreckage of my past. That's why I do an inventory in step 4. I admit the faults to God, to myself, and to another human being. And then in step 6, I'm entirely ready to have God remove the defects of character. Then in step 7, I humbly ask him to remove the shortcomings. Remember, don't complicate it. It's that simple. It really is. So I admit my powerlessness. I'm beginning the degree of surrender in step 1. I'm making a choice. I'm choosing to acknowledge my condition. And as a result, my life had become unmanageable. I could no longer function as an untreated alcoholic. And that led me to insanity. And it's interesting that the insanity of my addiction does not begin until I stop drinking. Anytime my insanity would well up, would make itself known before I admitted I was powerless over alcohol while I was still drinking, I just drank or used. That quieted it down. Remember, alcohol is a sedative. It puts asleep, as Father Martin would say, it puts asleep that which would make us uncomfortable. So the minute I get uncomfortable, the minute I start to feel insane, I drink, which is insane, because then I don't show up for 2 or 3 days. 3 days later, and when I do show up, I forgot why I left in the first place. Or my employer would say, you know what? You were actually supposed to be to work on Monday. And I say, what day is it? He says, it's Thursday, for crying out loud. And you're late on Thursday. You were supposed to be here on Monday. You didn't show up till Thursday, and then you didn't show up until 10 o'clock, not 8:30. But when that would happen, I would just drink, I would use, I would get over that pain, that insanity. So now I've had to deal with the insanity as a sober person. I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. So restoration occurs. At one point, I made normal decisions. I'm not sure of how far back that goes. I'm not a forensic psychologist, or I'm not a psychiatrist. So I've never done a deep dive into that pool, but I know it started pretty young. I've gone back and I've taken inventory. I've looked at things, but I've never dissected them to that degree, because to me, it doesn't really matter. So then I surrender. And then what is the next best thing to do? If I had been responsible for my life up to then, which I had been, I made sure no one else was, I could burn my life to the ground by myself. Thank you very much. I learned that at 13, 14 years old when I started drinking. So then I don't want my life to be run by an idiot, which is me. So turning my will and my life over to the care of God just made perfect sense. If I'm insane and I can no longer control my propensity, my desire to drink once I start drinking, and I realize that position, and I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, why not turn my will and my life over to the care of God as we understood God? I have to understand what the first 100 believed, who that belief in God was, and then I need to find something that's comfortable for me as a person of recovery. Then I'm ready to take an inventory. What's really cool is how simple Bill made this program. And it is simple. It's so simple that I figured it out. Well, I didn't figure it out. I had it pretty much explained to me. So inventory in step 4, wrongs in step 5, defects of character in step 6, and shortcomings in step 7, they're the same thing. They're not different things. Wrongs, inventory, wrongs, defects of character, and short. I don't have to figure those things out. They're the same thing, which is amazing, because the wrongs or the inventory in step 4 that I take sort of pre-populates step 8. where I made a list of all persons I had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all, right? So step 4, which is an inventory step, sort of pre-populates, fills in the blanks. Every now and then I'll have another name to use or to add to step 8 of people I've harmed, but they're pretty much part of my inventory. And I'll figure that out as I go anyway. Then I set on a journey to make direct amends. Direct means face-to-face wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except, and that's really where I needed sponsor guidance, because I didn't want to say I was sorry to certain people, though it was necessary, but it was how I said I was sorry to them. I'm not going to give detail to how much I stole, when I was an adulterer, when I was an adulterer, all these things to hurt someone or bring someone else into the conversation that would hurt them or their relationship when they were actually a victim of me, right? So I do all these things. I surrender in steps 1, 2, and 3. I recover in steps 4 through 9, and then I maintain that recovery in steps 10, 11, and 12. I'm making better choices today. Can we choose? Well, heck yeah, we can choose. I have made the right choice to not drink, not use, not burn my life to the ground for 14,001 days. My friend Randy has got, 14,606 days, some crazy number. My sponsor Will, 44 years, has got over 16,000 days, so we can be done. I know countless people who, one day at a time, they're going to be sober for the rest of their life. And I don't see why I won't be. I'm actively involved with other alcoholics. I practice the principles in all my affairs. On Roman numeral 17, it says, the strenuous work one alcoholic to another is vital to bring about permanent recovery. I expect permanency. I had every reason to expect my life would be crappy the whole way through when I drank and used. When I apply the 12 steps, specifically steps 10, 11, and 12 to my daily life, why wouldn't it get better? It's not going to get worse. If I'm climbing the ladder, I'm not going to go down. Now, Stephen Covey, which is brilliant, says we climb the ladder of life when we realize we're leaning against the wrong wall. I'm constantly taking my inventory. My sponsor, my wife, I have people in my life who have permission in my life to say, hey, Rob, you're off the wrong path. You need to get back on there. You need to get back on there. I have service commitments. I'm in treatment centers. I do whatever I can. So I'm actively involved. I'm continued to take a personal inventory. And when I'm wrong, I promptly admit it. In 11, I sought through prayer and meditation to improve, not to establish, but to improve the conscious contact with God as we understood it, praying only, exclusive word for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Then in step 12, having had a spiritual awakening, I carried this message to alcoholics. I tried to. Doesn't mean I was successful, but I tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all my affairs. What are the principles? The principles are the previous 11 steps. So as I continue to do steps 10, 11, and 12 every day, I have every reason to believe I will be sober one day at a time for the rest of my life. If I had every reason to know that my life was going to stay burnt when I was drinking, as long as I'm making better choices, I'm choosing better. I'm choosing, now that I got that choice back, I can choose whether or not to drink. And I can choose better lifestyle decisions as I move forward. I hope you are doing the same thing. And if not, let me know. I have friends around the country who can help you in ways that I maybe can't. However, if you need me, find me on Instagram. I am recovery_guy on Instagram. I am Real Recovery Guy on YouTube. I'm Recovery Guy Podcast on podcast channels. And I'm recoveryguy.org on the web. So there's a number of ways to reach me. Reach out to someone sometime. If you're struggling, why are you struggling? What is it about you choosing that you don't believe you can make the right choice to do the right things? I hope this helps. I know it helped me. It reaffirmed my commitment to my personal recovery. And I hope it's allowed you to make a commitment to your recovery as well. My name is Robert. I'm the recovery guy. And remember, we got broken apart, but we get whole together. Have a great day and be blessed. Talk to you soon.